Yeah. So I believe there needs to be and should be a government role in some of that.
What should it be?
If you look at Equifax, you and I didn't decide for Equifax to have our personal information. That's their business model. They aggregate our information, and by holding our information, we don't get a choice as to whether they hold it or not. And so I think Congress is looking at what are the requirements and regulations that ought to surround those personal information activities, what is required for breach notifications, and we'll participate in all those dialogues. I think it's really clear there needs to be a change, but we'll have to look at the details of what's being proposed.
Governor Cuomo in New York has called for a requirement that these credit reporting agencies protect their data or lose their licenses. Would you support such a move, at least for the credit reporting agencies?
I think there needs to be some oversight and regulation in that. One thing I'm convinced of, though, is we need to be careful about balkanizing the regulations. It's really hard on companies today with state regulators, local regulators, maybe multiple federal regulators, federal law, international law. And so one of the things I want to be careful of in the response to Equifax, that we don't balkanize the regulations and a company doing business in 50 states and internationally has to contend with 75 different rules and regulations.
Right. So what the Equifax breach also brings to mind is that one of the reasons it's so easy today to conduct identity theft is that at the basis of that is the Social Security number, which is almost as old as the abacus. It's used with that and your birth date. You can have access, get credit cards, all sorts of other services online. Should we be looking at whether we should continue to use the Social Security number as our number one building block for identity?
Yeah, I feel very strongly that the Social Security number's outlived its usefulness. It's a flawed system. If you think about it, every time we use the Social Security number, you put it at risk. By interacting with it, you've given a key piece of information out publicly, maybe to a private company, maybe to an individual. But that is, the identifier that connects you to all sorts of credit and digital information online. There are technologies we can look at advancing, and I think our call is let's look at what would be a better system. Certainly, the idea that we could use a public and private key, something that I can use publicly but not put the information at risk, something that can be revoked if it's known to be compromised. Right? How many people here today have changed your Social Security numbers knowing that the Equifax breach happened? Right? Nobody. Right? So it's a flawed system that we can't roll back that risk after we know we had a compromise. I personally know my Social Security number has been compromised at least 4 times in my lifetime. That's just untenable. So we've got to move. We've got a modern digital age. We've got to find a way to use that modern cryptographic identifier to help us drive down that risk.
So will the Trump administration be rolling out a proposal to use a sort of a public key, private key system in the near future?
So at the policy coordination level, in a group I run, we've called for the departments and agencies to bring forward their ideas, and let's start talking about the Social Security number and the vulnerabilities in the cyber world.